I have not heard anybody talk about that one yet. And I think there's an opportunity for you right now, Monty, because Amber mentioned the millennial pause that was already termed. I think you have an opportunity to name this one. So we're going to give you some time to name it.
I don't know. I can't. Millennial illiterate. I don't know.
What's one of the most common mistakes that you've seen on IG Reels, and what is a solution that you would suggest for those that are watching to utilize?
Yeah, absolutely. So my biggest one, and in case you guys don't follow me, I do a lot of like talking head videos, meaning like I look at the camera and I talk to the camera. And what I see a lot of small business owners do is something known as the millennial pause. And I'm a millennial myself. I was guilty of this for a while. And it's you push the record button and you take a big long pause before you start talking. And sometimes, even if it's just a second to maybe sometimes up to 3 seconds, that is enough time for somebody to scroll away because they're not interested. So the way to go about this, I love using tools like Descript that it uses AI to automatically cut out my pauses for me. Or if you're using just something inside of Reels, like if you're creating inside of the app, all you have to do is go into that edit function and just shrink your clips. Just like kind of clip off the beginning and clip off the end, because those pauses, those are detrimental to your views and your watch rate. So yes, that's mine. Yes.
Megan and Monty, do you guys use an app like that as well to kind of get rid of those millennial pauses?
I actually go in and do all of my trimming myself, but I don't do many talking videos. So I feel if I did more of that, then I definitely would use a tool, because we need to prioritize our time for sure.
I was just doing the millennial pause. My bad. I couldn't resist it. My bad. Yeah, no, for sure. I get it. I absolutely agree with Amber, the millennial pause. I didn't know the name for it, but yeah, that is definitely something that I believe is a mistake that a lot of people make. And for me personally, I edit my videos by myself. If I have like my editor do it for me, I always make sure to take out the gaps and the air pockets where there's too long of a pause to where it either makes it awkward or it just disengages the viewer altogether. So yeah, for sure.
They did a whole study on it, and the difference why they call it the millennial pause is when we grew up, there's always a delay in a camera. Whenever you click the button and there's a delay, so we adjusted to that, whereas like Gen Z grew up with Snapchat, where the minute you push record it starts recording. So that's why they call it the millennial pause.
I'm a millennial, and that makes me feel old, you know what I'm saying?
No. I was like, our technology is too old, so we have to account for it in the editing process.
I'll dive into the next mistake that I think people are making. This is, you know, when I talk about Reels, a lot of times when I'm like, you know, working with somebody or teaching somebody, like one of the things I like to focus on is the psychological aspect of it, right? And a lot of times what a lot of people don't do is they don't put themselves in the shoes of the viewer to understand what's going to be effective versus what's not going to be effective, or what can cause a viewer to keep swiping past or to stop watching your video versus what will keep them watching until the end. And one of the things, it's a pet peeve of mine, and y'all need to stop doing this right now. So basically, I don't have a name for it, but it's just simply not respecting or understanding the relationship between text duration and text length, right? So if you have a big block of text, which you shouldn't really have a big block of text on the screen anyway, on your reel, there are certain cases, but in most cases you shouldn't. That big block of text, you have to think about how long it takes to read that. If it's only on screen for half a second, most people are not going to be able to read that whole thing. And most people are not going to want to have to restart the whole video to watch that, or have to put their finger and press down on the screen for however long to read the entire message. So that creates a bad viewer experience. And then on the other end, if you have a short length text and it's on screen for too long, then it's like, why? I get it already. What's the next thing? You know what I mean? So you have to have a consciousness of the relationship between text length and text duration in relationship to how long your actual video is, right? Because if you have a long block of text and your video is only 5 seconds long, and that text is only on screen for half a second, well, now you have this disaster where people can't read the entire text. The video's on repeat over and over and over again. They don't really want to, you know, put their finger on it to stop it and read it. And they're just going to keep swiping past your video. So just take the time before you post your video, watch your video from a outside perspective, and try to read whatever it is that you put on the screen within the duration that it's on screen. And if you can't read it that fast, then most likely your audience can't read it that fast either, and you have to make some adjustments.
That is a great one. I have not heard anybody talk about that one yet. And I think there's an opportunity for you right now, Monty, because Amber mentioned the millennial pause that was already termed. I think you have an opportunity to name this one. So we're going to give you some time to name it.
I don't know. I can't even, millennial illiterate. I don't know. I can't read that fast. I don't know.
No, but that is a great one that not a lot of people really consider, because they really do focus on how they interpret it and consume it without considering, is it on too long?
Yeah, so it's one of those things, especially with the rise of like this text on top of B-roll. So like you put text on top of screen and then you put like a trending sound with it. And the thing is, it was like kind of a gimmick for a while. They're like, put as much text as you can and make the video super short so it replays over and over again. And it's something that worked, but again, it's not creating a great user experience for the person viewing your thing. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's one of those things, leaning into more ethical marketing, making sure that we're making content also accessible to those like that, you know, even just thinking about the overall experience, but then other people that have, you know, certain accessibility things. It's just all around a good practice. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
I agree with that so much right now. Like it's especially right now, we're seeing, like Amber, you were just saying, people just doing sketchy tips or tricks to try to get real views, like keeping it on for just a short amount of time. So I definitely agree with that. But I also do love, Monty, how you mentioned like having the short text on for too long. And that's thinking about like when you're viewing the reel, what's going to be entertaining, right? Like we need to continue to have things move and pop up and continue to tell that story, or else we don't really care. And I'm sitting there saying, okay, when do I get the next thing? Like that's boring, and I swipe away. So I love that. I totally agree.
That's a really great tip. Like I said, I hope to hear a new term from it. I don't know if you're going to go with the millennial illiterate. That might.
I'm gonna text you later on the day when I think of something. I got
bad about millennial pause. I don't know how people would feel about the millennial illiterate.
I'm feeling very attacked as a millennial right now.
I'm work on that, y'all. I promise.
So my tip would be to not give enough attention to the first 3 seconds. And I'm not just making that as simple as not putting a hook like that. I know that's a huge tip that a lot of people share. I've shared that a million times, but it's not just about the written hook, but it's also about the visual part of the video. Not paying attention to the first 3 seconds of the reel is going to get somebody to swipe away. So having a little bit of movement, it could be the slightest amount of movement in the first 3 seconds, is going to dramatically increase your views, because it's engaging and entertaining. It has that aspect of something's going on, something else is going to happen. I want to see what's going to happen. So it could be something as simple as, if you're doing a talking head video, slowly zooming in, or you're talking with your hands, maybe you have something in your hand, like people use props, but having something that captures the eye in the first 3 seconds, whether it's a video or text, is so important. And I see this mistake all of the time, and it really impacts people's views, because people don't get past that threshold, and then it doesn't even count as engagement on that reel. So it's really important, the first 3 seconds.
Nowadays, I think that overall, as social media progresses, as you know, we transition to a more social media active generation of viewers, attention span is shorter. Like you have to have more elements included or involved in your video to really grab people's attention and to also sustain people's attention, right? So think about it, like let's make it elementary for everybody. You pay a ticket, you go to the movies, and the screen is black the whole time, but you can hear the words. How engaged are you? Let's flip it. You go to the movies, you can't hear a thing, but you can see the screen and everything that's happening, right? Let's give you another scenario. You go to the movies, the screen is just a photo. It's not motion video. You can't hear anything. It's just a picture. Think about how disengaged you are and how quickly you become disengaged when those elements are missing. So you have to find a way to incorporate, you know, engaging elements with with audio on, with the visual appearance, with text, and all of those different elements. If you find a way to combine, you know, the visual, the audible, and all of those elements into an engaging format, if you find a way to put it all together, you have an optimal hook, right? And I saw somebody had asked in the comments, you know, should it be text or should it be verbalized? If you can do all of the above, do it, right? But you also have to keep in mind what works best for the specific type of reel that you're creating. If you're doing a highlight video, well, your highlight video is not going to have you giving a verbal hook, so you might want to use the text for that, right? So you got to think about the type of reel that you're creating. But in any scenario where you can combine the audible and the visual aspects to create a hook, go for it.
Absolutely. And there's one other like thing that I want to set people up with psychologically here. So there's like, when you go, just, we're going to use TikTok as an example. You go and you log in, you know you're going to be consuming videos. The sound is automatically on. When you go onto Reels, the sound is not automatically on. So it's really important. I'm so glad you said that it's not just visual. It's not just audio. Make sure you have captions or some form of a text on the screen, especially in those first 3 seconds. And that's where captions are really, really important. You know, making sure you have subtitles, things like that. That is also very important in those first 3 seconds. They're going to decide, I want to listen to this, and they'll click the sound on. A lot of people do view Reels without the sound on typically. So that's also something to consider. So making sure you're engaging them with that text, with that visual is also important.
I've made this mistake where I've actually used trending songs and I completely forgot to lower the volume. So what ends up happening, well, most in particular when I have a voiceover and it's my own, added with music, all you hear is the music. You're not even hearing me. My mouth is just like this, and you're hearing the background music, which is no longer in the background. If the music is too loud, for instance, you just can't hear it or anything at all with what the person is saying, at least use a caption sticker. That would at least help provide some form of idea of what you are saying. So even if the music is too loud and you forgot to lower it when you were posting a reel, the closed caption will kind of save you. I generally try to use the closed caption sticker no matter what I'm actually doing. In the reel, on the IG story, if I'm talking, there's a closed caption involved that I am just applying for anybody. But if you are thinking preemptively, lower the volume to 5 and under of the background music. And when you're able to do that, your voice is dominantly louder. Sometimes, depending on your source of audio, depending on the song, the loudness you cannot change, but the volume you can. And even if you bring it down to 5, compared to another song that you bring down to 5, the levels might still be different, but nonetheless, your voice will be overpowering and they'll still hear it. So even if you use a song and it gets so low that the person can't hear it, you're still taking advantage of the trending song because it's applied to your reel, but your voice, which matters the most, is being heard more. So I think that's something that's really important to consider from the top, as well as a small idea is to not use music that has vocals. Because when another song has vocals in the background and you're talking over it, most likely the people cannot understand what is being said, even if both are at the same level or one is slightly underneath. So those are 3 different tips that I think that you could utilize in case the audio is too loud, because there are too many times, not only have I made this mistake, there are too many times that I've come across just scrolling on Instagram. And I'm one of those that do listen with the sound on, but as soon as I come across that, I just keep scrolling because I'm not going to get the value from what's being said. And I think a lot of people are going to be doing that as well. Here we go. I think we hit it all. That's 4 different ways that we discovered most common IG reel mistakes. But we've also shared 4 solutions for you guys to utilize and take and practice to get away from those common problems. And I think sharing a lot of these tips with others and practicing it yourself is only going to make for a better way for you guys to actually grow using your IG reels and hopefully reach that target audience that you guys are looking for. Please take all of those steps. And like I always like to say, step your gram up in the best way possible and move forward.
I'm actually curious from the audience, when you guys are scrolling and watching reels, do you have the sound on or do you have the sound off normally?
That's a good question.
I personally never have the sound on ever.
Really?
Even if I'm all alone and like I just am scrolling, unless I'm looking for trending audio. That is the only time I have the sound on. So curious, let us know here in the comments.